What is poverty? We are going to look at why the majority of Americans have misconceptions about poverty and how you should consider poverty. Poverty is a state of deprivation where a person's capabilities are so limited that he or she cannot live a dignified life. Measuring capabilities is nearly impossible, but it can easily and accurately be estimated through the Human Development Index.
But what do we mean by capabilities? Capabilities are the ability to do something, such as having enough food to eat, as well as going to college, being happy, and living a good life. The problem that the poor face is that they do not have the ability to fulfill some or all of these capabilities.
Philosopher Martha Nussbaum has come up with a list of the 10 capabilities that she feels are most central to leading a life of dignity. These are the non-material, non-income specific resources that a person needs in order to live a life where all basic needs are met. These central capabilities are furnished through a person's combined capabilities, which include internal capabilities that can be trained and developed, as well as the social, political, and economic environment in which a person lives.
There are two ways of measuring someone's capabilities: quantitatively and discursively. Discursively is measuring someone's capabilities through comparisons and conversations. It's practically impossible to measure poverty through discursive means. Thus, we need to measure poverty through other means, such as through quantitative and use of numbers.
The best way to get empirical data on poverty is through the HDI, also known as the Human Development Index. This index looks at three different factors when determining poverty. It looks at the health of a person, the education of a person, as well as their income. Currently, the HDI compares countries to countries throughout the world. But what if instead of looking at countries, we looked at a country? Now, instead of looking at just of America, what if we look at a single state, like Florida? Now let's zoom in even further, and instead of comparing states to each other, compare congressional districts to each other. Now, let's keep zooming in and look at towns. Let's compare each town to each other. Now, we can zoom in one more time and zoom all the way down into the household. This is our idea on how to measure poverty, is by using the HDI at a household-to-household basis instead of country to country. By using this household-to-household method, we are able to more fairly compare two different families on more than just income. Additionally, while trying to quantify all of this data, we would be able to set up a scale showing how far away from the poverty line each family is and how far the average family is away from the poverty line.
We feel that assessing capabilities in addition to income is more accurate than the current system, which measures poverty only through income inadequacy at the household level. We think that the U.S. could use a better system of measurement than the OPM and SPM. The biggest issue with these measurements is that they are binary and do not account for people who are close to the poverty line, practically touching it, but just above the threshold. They also do not show the depth of poverty experienced by those who are below the threshold.
If we quickly look back at our first drawing, we can see that people have different capabilities. Some of these capabilities aren't tied directly to income. For example, health and quality education are not tied to income. This is why it's better to measure capabilities instead of just measuring income.
Some would argue that functionings, or how someone is acting, is a better means of measuring poverty than capabilities. However, simply looking at a person's functionings does not show which actions are by free will or by necessity. For example, a monk functions at the same level as someone in poverty, but his functionings are by choice. He does have the capability of being out of poverty. all functionings fall in the range of capabilities.
We believe that observing functionings can give some indications of poverty levels, but we don't think that it is the most definitive assessment tool. We know that understanding a person's capabilities will allow us to better understand what the person has the opportunity to do. This is important because equality of opportunity supersedes equality of resources and equality of functions from many political, economic, and moral standpoints.
To visualize this, let's look at two different people, one named George and one named Rob. Here the black circle shows George and Rob's capabilities, what they are able to do with their life. The blue circle shows what they are actually doing with their life, also known as their functioning. Now if we look at purely functioning, it'll appear as George and Rob are doing just as well as each other in life. In reality though, George has the opportunity to do much more than Rob, but chooses not to. Because George is able to do much more than Rob, we shouldn't look at them as equals. George could do more if he wanted to. This is why functionings is a bad way of looking at poverty. Instead, we should look at capabilities.
Economist and philosopher Amartya introduced his idea of poverty as a person not having their capabilities met. Capabilities, according to Sen, are all the beings and doings that a person is able to achieve. The key to that is able to achieve, not actually what they are achieving right now. The things that hold back people in their capabilities are social, political, cultural, and economic barriers that exist in a person's life.
Poverty is a lack of basic or combined capabilities. Without either, a person is unable to function effectively in society and have social, economic, or political standing. Poverty can be seen through a person's necessity to make a tragic choice, but sometimes poverty can come before a choice is even made. We think poverty in the U.S. should be measured partly by income and partly by a person's capabilities through the Human Development Index.
To answer the first half of our original question, capabilities is the best way to define poverty. To answer the second part of our question, which is how should we measure poverty, the easy answer is the IHDI. It is a practical way to measure capabilities and is easy to implement. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned why capabilities is a much better definition of poverty than basic income, and why the IHDI is the best way to measure poverty. For further readings on capabilities and the IHDI, please click the link.